intro within the presentation, so I won't do one now and then do it again. So if I just share my screen and we can launch straight into it. Can everybody see that okay? Yeah. So yeah, we've been tasked with giving you 20 tips in 20 minutes. So I'm going to try my absolute best to keep to time, but there is a lot to cover and hopefully you will all get something out of it. So a little bit about me then. I'm Emma Speirs and I run a PR agency called Ballyhoo PR. We've been running for, it will be 10 years in May. And I think we've been entering SME awards since 2017, I believe. So yeah, almost 10 years experience at submitting entries for these awards. And we have had a really high success rate. I wish I'd kept a better kind of system of keeping track, but I think it is round about 90% of all the entries we've done have either gone through to finalists or gone on to win. So yeah, really hoping that what I share with you today, you'll be able to take away and create yourself a winning award entry. So firstly, just a quick overview. What are the benefits of entering awards? So yeah, they build trust. So people know that you're credible because you've had a sort of third party, a judging panel, look over your business and what you're doing. And then, yeah, that builds trust with other people. It demonstrates excellence at what you do. If you can say you've won an award for customer service or sustainability. Also, for these particular awards, any gold winners from selected categories go through to some national business awards as well. So that's really worth doing. And again, we've had clients who have won at a regional level and then gone on to win a national award at Wembley through the same entry. So they haven't had to enter twice. So that's a huge benefit. It makes you stand out from your competitors. So again, if somebody is looking at taking you on versus somebody else and they can see you've won an award for something that's important to them and resonates with their values, then that will give you the edge. It gives your business a literal stage. So if you do go up to collect an award, there'll be a whole room full of people that maybe didn't know who you were before suddenly become aware of you. There's lots of pre and post event PR opportunities. So you can push something out to say if you've been a finalist, and then equally, if you're lucky enough to win, you can, publicise that and get your name everywhere. On the actual evening, it's a great networking opportunity, particularly if you're a small team and you get to share a table with somebody else. You make lots of new connections. It's a morale boost as well. We know people who, if they get through to the awards, they hire a table and that ends up being a sort of team night out. And yeah, it congratulates everybody who's been a part of, what they've been nominated for. And then also you can use the fact you've won an award in any tenders, proposals and sales pitches. And talent attraction is a huge one that we've seen an increase of in recent years, where people want to recruit new, talented, skilled staff and they want to stand out. So if they've won Employer of the Year, for example, that then really helps them to attract the people that they want to work for them. So rolling on with the tips then. So the first one I think is hugely important is to think about your wider business goals. So, for example, if you do want to be seen as Employer of the Year so that you can recruit and add to your team, then you look at that category. If you want to be known for being a more sustainable business and you're making moves to reduce waste and things, it makes sense to obviously look at the sustainability category. So yeah, we would encourage people to actually have a think about what's in their business plan for the year and which award categories match up with those and what do you want to be known for. So that's something to do. And then, yes, a few little asides here, a few thoughts. Have you done enough to win this award, do you think? What proof do you have? And who could be your competition? There are some businesses that are cleaning up and you think, oh, I won't go for that category because they're bound to win it. So there's maybe a bit of being strategic about it as well. Which award would you stand a better chance with? And also, would the category be on brand? Is it something that you think, oh, well, it's not really that relevant, but we'll go for it? Or is it something that is actually hugely indicative of what you do and what your values are?
I'm just going to jump in quickly there. Sorry,
Yeah,
Emma. Just if anybody's got any questions as we go along, there's a Q&A button at the top. If you'd like to press that and pop your any questions you have, and Emma or I will address them at the end.
thanks, Damien.
Sorry, Emma.
Yeah, sorry, I should have said that. Yeah, tip two. So, does the category truly fit, or are you making it fit? You'd be surprised how many people just like the idea of a title, and then when you look at the criteria, like, yeah, but you haven't actually done any of those things. Um, it wasn't for these awards, but we did have somebody approach us who wanted to go for a Businessman of the Year title. But then when I kind of looked at what he'd done, it was all on a very sort of small scale. Even though he'd achieved great things, he was a sole trader, and there was a sole trader of the year category. So I kind of advised, I think you should go for that. You'd stand a greater chance of winning. So yeah, whilst you do want it to align with your business goals and you might have grand ideas, you also need to be a bit realistic as well. So think about, is it really a good fit with you in that category? What proof do you have? What evidence could you gather ahead of the deadline? So right now we've got like a week to go for the Northamptonshire SME Awards. What could you get together in a week that would prove your claims? Could you create any if you haven't got any? For example, you could send out a press release today to generate enough press coverage for you to use as supporting evidence next week. Or you can create a financial chart or some customer testimonial graphics. If you haven't got any supporting evidence, think about what you've got time to create. Tip three, and this is hugely important, go over the questions and criteria with a fine-tooth comb. So what are the judges looking for? And this is one thing that I feel quite strongly about. You will notice when you come to complete your entry that on the main homepage there is a list of all the categories, and then there is a paragraph of blurb under each one. I'll come on to that in a bit more detail later, but it says within that what the judges are looking for. So then if you then click onto the questions, you might forget what the judges are looking for. So I think it's very important that you cut and paste that summary into a Word document or make a note of what they're asking for, and make sure you include that within your answers as well. Also, are there any firm requirements that could rule you out? Some of the categories, for example, best new business, you have to have started by a certain date. If it's young business person of the year, you can't be above a certain age. Number of employees for the different business of the year category. So just check out before you invest too much time, really, that you are, it is appropriate for you. And then there are a few optional questions. So, for example, there might be financial questions, I think, with the SMEs where it has in brackets optional. You can skip those, but again, I do think it's a wasted opportunity. I would advise, if you didn't want to divulge your financials, that you probably look at another category where you don't need to. For example, if you're going for a high growth category, you can't really demonstrate that without putting the financials in, even though it might have optional in brackets. So that would be my advice. If there is an optional question, fill it in. If you don't want to, then that category probably isn't for you. Tip four, so I mentioned there about the blurb. So yeah, I think this is really important. I always look at this and then pull out some keywords. So you can see for the example I've just posted here for the business innovation category, some of the words that I've pulled out are innovation, new, different, smarter or better, positive difference, time saving, procedure or product. And then I would think of your entry a bit like a job application and covering letter. How can you say, instead of just, I think the actual question is, is that on the next slide? Yeah. What difference has innovation, I'll just have to move down a little bit, made to the business? Instead of just answering that category, I would try and mention these keywords in your answers. So you're mentioning the word innovation, you're mentioning whether it's different or smarter or better. You're also mentioning what the positive difference is, what's the impact, has it saved time? If so, can you quantify that? Have you made changes to any procedures or products? If you're not sure if what you're doing is an innovation, there's some little helpful notes really as to what would constitute an innovation. So yeah, I would think of it like a job application, a covering letter, where you would look at maybe the role and the requirements and then make your CV fit. It's very, very similar. Um, and then I would suggest that you create your questions and answers on a separate Word document. So yeah, make sure that you use that description to your full advantage. Okay, tip number 5. So this is something I always do, and it probably is creating more work for yourself, but I think it's a worthwhile exercise. So if you can ask yourself additional questions, so rather than just what difference has innovation made to the business and you sit there and write 250 words, I would look back over the blurb and those keywords and break it down into smaller questions. So I've put, for example, how is your innovation different? Is it something new, or is it a smarter way of doing things? What positive impact has it had on the business and its people? Has it saved time? If so, can you evidence this? And then I've put at the bottom there, you need 250 words for that particular question or answer. So if you were to write roughly, break that down into 4, that's 62 and a half words for each of those sub questions. So that's the methodology that I use. If you try and stick to around 60 questions for each of those smaller questions, then that will answer the larger question. But make sure that you've also included those keywords and all of the relevant points. Tip number 6, get reflective. So a lot of these awards, they are particularly interested in what you've done over the last 12 months. So what we do with our clients, actually, we have an annual plan that we work to. So it's quite easy to look back over the year and see what things we've been shouting about over the course of the year. But if you don't have one of those, it could be worth just looking at your calendar, your diary. If you've got any marketing or business plans, what's been your focus over the last 12 months and what have been your key achievements? Have you grown your team? How many new staff members have you taken on in the last 12 months? I've put there a new office or acquisition, any new products. Have you implemented any new procedures? Have you tried to sort of streamline things and save time and money? What have been your key achievements? Are there any standouts? Maybe look through your camera roll as well, actually. That might be a good idea, just to see what you've captured, what photos, what events you've been to. And then I've put here, Google your business or ask ChatGPT. But what I mean by this is literally just kind of put your business in and see what results come up. And then if you filter the date to the last 12 months as well, you can see if you have been putting stuff in the press, for example, you can see what news stories come up. But I definitely wouldn't get ChatGPT to answer the question for you because it's just not going to be good enough. But it might be a starting point to just say, oh, I hadn't considered I'd done that, or I'd forgotten I'd done that. So yeah, I think ChatGPT is a great tool for idea generation and maybe a bit of starting point. But yeah, you don't want to lose, we'll go on to that in a bit actually, you don't want to lose your personality or your voice, all of those important things. And if you are sort of trying to make it as relevant to the questions as you can, that won't help you. Also, what proof do you have over the last year? So I've just mentioned there about photos. If there's any press cuttings or plans or certificates, maybe you've won an accreditation or you've completed an ISO audit or something like that. Those certificates could be important to your supporting evidence later on. So yeah, just have a bit of a think about what you've done over the last 12 months. And that might mean that you end up going into this with one category in mind, but then you see you've got a wealth of evidence for something else. So, another category might actually be more relevant for you. Tip number 7. Act as a project manager. So I think once you're clear on what you need, what the questions are, what the criteria is, think about what you might need from other people in your organisation. So if you are looking for some financials, for example, speak to your finance department and ask if they can pull stats together for you. If you have a supplier that maybe does your social media for you, have they got a load of customer testimonials they've been sharing? Could they send those to you? So yeah, they can be working on those things for you whilst you're working on the entry rather than getting to the end and then asking them and it's all a bit of a mad rush. So yeah, I would suggest act as a project manager, set everybody deadlines and tell them what you need from them and try and be as organised as you can. Tip number 8. So I've already mentioned this a couple of times, but I would create a Word document or a Google document. Then where you actually copy and paste the questions from the online form and then work to it. Then you can share this with whoever you need to share it with. They can add notes. You can also add your own notes to the bottom. So if you're thinking, oh, I do need financials, you can put, for example, insert financials here. You can sort of use it as a working document rather than going straight into the form. I also think that you naturally proofread it more and it's easier to make changes rather than flicking back between the different screens on the form. And then once it's been approved and signed off by everybody, then you can cut and paste it into the form. It also means that you've then got a Word document on your server or wherever you store everything that you might be able to use later on if you wanted to do another award entry somewhere else and you've not lost it all. Okay, tip number 9. Hope I'm doing okay for time. If you can write in the first person, I would advise that you do that because it creates more of an emotional connection. So if you can say, even if you're writing on behalf of your MD, for example, I think to say, I thought this, I felt this, we did this, it makes it more impactful than talking about the business in the third person. Also have an arc if you're telling a story. So maybe start at what the challenge is, what the idea was, how it came together, who was involved and what the results were. Again, if you can try and get those into 250 words, I think that, again, they're impactful. Also, don't be scared to mention failures. It's all part of the journey. Judges don't necessarily want fluff. If something didn't work out, say why it didn't work out, how you overcame it, how it changed, whether it was a product or service you were developing or a new procedure, or maybe it's a recruitment thing for Employer of the Year. Maybe you found that the people you were recruiting weren't quite right, so you've set up your own training academy. So yeah, don't be afraid of saying the things that went wrong and how you overcame them. It shows resilience, it shows honesty. If relevant as well, I know some people have said to me that they don't really want to mix business and pleasure and they don't, this is a business awards, they don't want to talk about their family. But again, if they're part of your why and why you've made a business decision, why you've started your business, again, judges resonate with that kind of thing, so don't be too scared to include it. Tip number 10, quantify as much as you can. Data is proof, so I wouldn't wait until you're supporting evidence to provide proof if you can. Also use statistics in the main entry. So if you've got any sales figures, financials, if you've increased your headcount by X amount, or even office space measurements for like a high growth, if you can say we moved into a bigger office, that's nice. But if you can quantify it and say it was 300 square foot, now we're in 1,000 square foot office, it just brings it to life a bit more. Any return on investment, reach and engagement. So obviously a lot of tools you might be using, it might be easy to just run a report and then you've got stats that you can include. If you're going for a sustainability award, how have you reduced waste? How many tons of carbon have you saved? So yeah, I think stats, pepper it with stats as much as you can. Tip 11. This is a hugely important one, right for the layperson. So when you're limited by a word count, it can be tempting to use abbreviations and acronyms, but the judges won't be from your industry or your sector. So you don't want it to be wasted, really, that somebody's skimming it and think, well, I don't know what that means, don't know what that means. So yeah, I would avoid acronyms, industry slang, abbreviations, any technical jargon, unless you can explain or define it, because they're just a waste of words, basically. And yeah, it might harm your chances. Okay, we're on 12. Make it easy to read. So on a similar note, don't make the entry overwhelming on appearance either. If it's just a big block of text, it makes it harder to read. If you can break the text up with subheadings or bullet points, I'm a massive fan of the bullet point when it comes to award entries. I think it's a good tool as well for helping you to keep the word count down. You can start off by saying, in the last 12 months we have, and then list about 5 bullet points. Yeah, it makes it easier on the eye. You can include more for less words. So yeah, I think if you can do that, that's another top tip. And this is where the stats that I mentioned as well, you can put those in as well. Number 13. So this is sort of from experience, really. whilst I've said there about trying to keep the word count in mind as you're writing, if you find that you've got into a bit of a groove and you're just writing and writing and writing, don't keep stopping thinking, oh, how many words is that? How many have I added? Just keep going and going. And then once you've reached the end of your flow, you can then go back and take out any words. You'll probably find that there'll be things like some adjectives that don't need to be there, or you can always, the amount of times I've gone, we are, changed to we're, just to try and condense it down a little bit more. So yeah, I would advise that rather than keep stopping to check the word count as you go, have a look back and edit out any repetition or overly flowery language. You can do that afterwards without losing any of the valuable content. Tip 14, supporting evidence. So I think you need to be quite strategic with this, and you need to make sure that you're not just uploading whatever you've got on file. If you think, oh, that's a nice team picture, we'll upload that. It needs to be relevant to the category you're going for and what you're claiming. So if you've said, for example, yeah, the sustainability, we've achieved an ISO in whatever the number is for environmental, yeah, upload a certificate for that because it's proving that you've done that. If you have a case study on a PDF that tells a story, you know, mentioned about the arc, the challenge, the results, that would be a great thing to submit as supporting evidence. Press cuttings we do a lot of. So if you know, there's been a story during the year which really encapsulates you as a business and the award that you're going for, you can attach that. The good thing about the SME awards is you can have 10 pieces of supporting evidence, and I think one of those can be a video. So you do have a lot to play with. Some other awards, they only allow sort of 2 or 3 and you're quite restricted. So you do have a lot to play with there, but just make sure it's relevant to what you're saying and it's not just a case of, oh, we've got that in a folder, we'll upload it. Just try and make sure it is at every turn, it's proving what you've said in your entry. Okay, 15. So I've just mentioned there about the supporting evidence, and I've already mentioned about the Word document. What we do is we create a folder where we put the entry draft in and all of the supporting evidence files, and you would not believe how often we go back to them. They're just so useful. And it might be that maybe you get a speaking opportunity and you're asked to provide a bio and you're like, oh, I know, I can take a section out from that award entry I did. Or if you're doing a tender, then you've got all of the supporting evidence and certificates, case studies, testimonials. You've got all of that in a folder ready to go. So whilst you're working on it and you're compiling it, the first entry is always the hardest. But from then, if you've got this folder that you can keep revisiting and using for other things, it really does work. And I would, you know, advise you to do that. 16. So once you've written everything, allow the time to get a second pair of eyes to review it. Not only can they help with spotting typos and grammatical errors, they may think of something that you've forgotten that could make the entry that bit more powerful. If there is time, it could also be worth getting it checked by a third person who has absolutely nothing to do with the business to see if they understand everything. So I mentioned there about acronyms and jargon. You know, if they're not from your world, then it's a good test to see if a judge would understand it. And has everyone who needs to see it signed it off? Again, we've had that before where somebody signed it off and then a couple of days later somebody else raises their hand and says, oh, hang on, I haven't seen that. So yeah, just make sure that everybody you think needs to see it has seen it and it's all signed off. Okay, 17, final checks. So as you're transferring the information over from your Word document to your form, I find that you do naturally proofread it one last time, and then you will make sure that it fits all the word limits. One thing I do find sometimes is the word count that Word gives you can sometimes differ to the word count in the boxes of an award online form. So yeah, just make sure that no sentences have been cut off. I've had that before, where like the last 2 or 3 words have been chopped off. So yeah, just pay attention to that and make sure that that hasn't happened. And if it has, obviously you'll need to remove 3 other words from somewhere else to make it fit. As you're going through it as well, you'll be rereading the questions. So it's another test to see if everything you've put in your answers does actually answer the question. The supporting evidence, is it relevant to your entry? Yeah, and are there any typos? So you can do all that as you're uploading it to the form. Okay, 18. So this is from experience. Don't leave submitting your entry for the final few minutes before the deadline. I've been guilty of that before, even if I've been working on it for ages up until. But yeah, if you find there's a problem uploading one of your documents, for example, there's a 5 megabyte limit on any attachments for supporting evidence. So if you go to upload it and it's 6 megabytes, you're like, oh no, it's not taking it. Then you need to reduce it. And if you're panicking and you've got 10 minutes before the cut-off point, sometimes we've had it where we've got everything in PDF and then we've gone to upload it and they only accept JPEGs, and then you've got to convert everything to a different format. Also, for these awards, there is an entry fee of £24 plus VAT. So you need a card to make payment. So yeah, what happens if the transaction doesn't go through for whatever reason? You don't want to leave it until the final couple of minutes and then you're frantically searching around for a second card or something. So yeah, just make sure you allow yourself plenty of time for actually submitting the entry, even if it's been done way ahead of time. Okay, so the last couple of tips are more once you've submitted your entry. So if you are lucky enough to be selected as a finalist, make sure that you shout about it on social media with clients, do a press release to the local and trade media, and also make sure to use the finalist logo on your email signature website and other marketing materials. Really make the most out of it. A lot of people we speak to sometimes think, oh, should I wait and see if I win the award? You know, it seems to be tempting fate to be shouting about it, but you don't want to miss that opportunity. And then if you do win, then you get to do it again. So yeah, definitely, if you're a finalist, do something with it. And the final tip, make the most of the award ceremony. So network with the people on your table, make sure you take plenty of photos and tag in who you meet. I find that they end up following you back, and then, you know, that's it. You've got potential customers there that you've kind of onboarded in a weird way on social. Try writing a blog about your experience. Again, just another way to try and make the most of this opportunity. And if you do win, you can do a post-event press release. One thing I would advise is wait for the photos to come back from the professional photographer as well, because they make all the difference. If your partner has taken a picture of you with your award and then you send it out, I don't think it gets the same coverage. It could be the difference between a really small story or a big full-page spread if you've got a really nice professional photo. And breathe. Yes, that's 20 tips in, I think, 20 minutes or just over. Really hope that you've all found that useful. I'll stop sharing there.
Emma, well done. Thank you very much. That was, you've done incredibly well to do it in that time. Just very, very quickly to everyone, just in case we get cut off. Most importantly, if you don't have time or you feel you don't have the expertise in-house, please do give Emma a shout at Ballyhoo, who's got great experience across all our SME awards, and have a chat with her. We'll follow up with some details of how you can contact Emma after this. If anyone has any questions, either raise a hand or pop it in the Q&A and we can answer it now. We've really only got a few minutes, but please, you're more than welcome to, and we can always come back to you later if technology lets us down.
Anybody have any questions? Was that useful?
No questions, but thank you very much, Emma.
Oh, thank you, Louise.
Yeah, it was really useful. Thank you, Emma.
Oh,
yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Oh, no, that's good. Good to know it's useful. And if it's okay with Damien, I can send you all a copy of the slides if you want as well.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please do. Please do. Fab. Well, listen, thank you all very much for coming. Emma, thank you for giving your time and your expertise across. If you have any other questions, as I said, we'll pop some information over to you where you can get contact with Emma directly, or with one of our team if you have specific questions about a category or something you need to do. And I hope you all felt that it was, we deliberately sort of squashed it time-wise, because sometimes these webinars can go on for an awful long time, and we know everybody's busy, and I don't know about you guys, but January is still confusing me, so I'm sure you've got other things to do. But thank you all once again, and Emma, thank you very much.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity, Damien.
Okay, right. Cheerio,
Thanks, everyone.
folks.
Bye.